We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was produced, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present.
Today, we're heading back to 1981. Yossi Ghinsberg is 21 and looking for adventure. He's in South America, a long way from his home country of Israel, and he's hoping to explore one of the most remote corners of the earth. Travelling through Bolivia, he meets a man named Carl, an Austrian claiming to be a geologist headed into the jungle in search of gold. This is Yossi's chance for a real adventure. He practically begs Carl to take him, and he's not alone in his excitement. Two other men, Marcus Stam, a teacher from Switzerland, and Kevin Gale, a photographer from America, also wants in on the expedition. Carl agrees, and their journey begins travelling up the Yassariamas River, leading them deep into the uncharted areas of the Amazon. But it isn't long until things start to unravel. Within days, Yossi finds himself deep in the jungle, alone with no food and no clue how to get out. I'm Middleton. You're listening to Head Game. Today, an unbelievable story of survival and the power of the mind. Yossi Ghinsberg, listen, welcome to Head Game. Now, I've been to the jungle before. I spent a lot of time in the jungle when I was in the military, but I've never been to the Bolivian Amazon jungle. Now, take me back, Yossi, to 1981. What drew you to the jungle at the age of 21, 22? Why did you set off on that journey?
Actually, this was very precise vision that I've been holding for several years of my youth. So I actually left home with that purpose, not to get lost necessarily, but I wanted to be an explorer. I read many books, many great adventure books, many great exploration books. Reading all these adventure books as a kid, I had the tendency to daydream. And part of it was because school was very, very boring. So I spent hours in school looking out of the window and just being in my own world. And like that, I started visualizing myself as an explorer. And I was drawn to the story of Henri Charrière that escaped from the Devil's Island and found refuge with indigenous people in the jungles of Venezuela. And I decided I'm going to follow his step. I've decided I'm going to have my own adventure story. I don't want only to read about others' adventure. I'm going to be an explorer. So this was done. I mean, that notion came to me. I guess I was 15 or 16, something like that, years old. And, you know, there's two types of dreamers. Dreamers that dream as escapism. It means they will live the mundane, normal, boring maybe. They will protect the comfort zone, the known environment, and they'll never dare. So the only way they'll dare is by dreaming, and that dream is called escapism. But there's other dreamers that they cannot sleep because the dream keeps them away. And they live for the dream. And these people create the world by dreaming, because nothing is created unless you dream it first. And I didn't have the power to see myself that way, but that's what I was. I was so believing in that dream, and I was sure I'm gonna make this dream come true. And I did. In a way, when I left Israel, it was the first opportunity I had to leave Israel. Like you, I was drafted into the military. It's mandatory in Israel. So I spent 3 years from the age of 18 to 21, like every other boy. And during the long hours of, patrolling or whatever we did, I was on a missile boat in the Navy, and I was still dreaming the same dream. I'm going to be an explorer. I'm going to go deep into the jungle, not just the jungle, but the untouched, uncharted and I'll find a tribe of indigenous people like my hero, and I will be taken by them, and I will be made one of them. I'll be initiated. I'll be a warrior. I'll be a hunter, and then I'll fall in love with one of the native girls. And so she will be the daughter of the chief.
Oh wow! So your dreams were sort of trying to match your vision. You had this huge dream in your head, and the vision of being this adventurer, this explorer. So the moment you left the military, was that your cue to go off on this adventure, to follow that vision and to achieve that dream?
Absolutely, though it wasn't that straightforward because they don't pay in the military, nothing. You get, let's say, like, I don't know, $50 a month to buy some chocolate or cigarettes at the canteen. And so I was completely broke. My father, that was quite well-to-do, he was an industrialist, and he said, go to school, stop being indulgent. You know, you just spent 3 years in the army. Now it's time you get some education, get a profession, and I will help you. I will help you with a car. I will help you, I'll support you. You can also work at my factory. Your mom will cook for you, will do your laundry, and you go study and get a profession. But I said, no, I'm not. I'm going to follow my dream. So my father said, you follow your dream on your own. You will not see 1 shekel from me. And that's what happened. My father took me to the airport. And I remember he was behind his tough shield. He was soft and emotional, and he was crying when I left. But he didn't give me any shekel. So I couldn't fly to South America. I couldn't start my adventure. I had to work for it. And I think that's the first lesson for every beginner dreamer. Because, there's this notion, if you follow your heart and you follow your dream, then the entire universe will conspire to assist you. But actually, it's not like that. I had lots of obstacles. I had to work for 1 entire year in Norway, in 20 degrees minus in the winter. I spent the winter in Scandinavia working on a construction site. Then I flew to the United States. I went up to Alaska, and I worked in Alaska fishing, not really fishing, a little bit of fishing, but mostly cleaning fish in canneries, for 4 months, 18 hours a day, cleaning fish. And then I had some little accident because one of my best friend, and mind you, 81, no internet, no cell phones, he came after me and found me in Alaska. And he asked me to join him on a few weeks of just fun, coast-to-coast drive before I go on my great adventure. Unfortunately, our drive went through Las Vegas, and I lost all my money in one night. So after 8 months of hard work, I lost all my money.
Oh, God.
And that's the story. Yeah. I was crying. I was. I laugh with you today, but I remember I was there outside the casino, and I was crying, and my friend was also crying, and we were both crying. And then I had the choice to call my father, and my father would have sent me a ticket back home, and I will tell my grandchildren that I had a dream, but something happened. And that's the second thing I want to share with you and with your audience. A dream will always give you an opportunity to betray it. You'll have always a reason to say, look, I had this dream, but this and this happened. And I say, always there is a reason to betray your dream. Always something happened and give you an excuse to stop and not to follow your dream. But if you understand that it's not personal, that this is part of actually a law, that any dream will have resistance the size of the dream. So the bigger the dream, the biggest the resistance to the dream.
Of course, of course. That's always the way, right? Your big dreams, there's loads of things that can get in the way, loads of things that can stop you from achieving what you do. And in 1981, that dream, you put that dream into reality, right? You get on the plane, you make your way to the Bolivian Amazon, untrod, uncharted territory. You settle in there, and then you bump into a guide. Talk me through that moment when you decided that I'm going to go on this adventure together. Do you remember making that decision and being excited about it?
Of course, because this took another 6 months. So 1 year I was just working. After losing the money in Las Vegas, I went to New York and unloaded trucks for another 4 months. Then I flew to South America, but not to Bolivia. I flew to Venezuela. And I went through all the countries, from Venezuela to Colombia to Ecuador to Peru. And only then I arrived in Bolivia. And in each of this country, I was looking for my uncharted jungle and my tribe of Indians. So when I finally met this Austrian geologist in the streets of La Paz, Bolivia, and he told me that he's a geologist and explorer, and his next expedition is into the Madidi, an uncharted part of the Bolivian Amazon, and that there's gold in the river, and there's tribal peoples that were never explored before. Basically, he told me my own dream. And I knew something happened. After all this long time that I worked so hard, finally the universe has yielded. And it started cooperating. I found the man I came for. And indeed, Karl Ruprechter was everything I dreamt of. He was an adventurer, dressed like an adventurer, built like an adventurer. He had a funny accent, but he was very knowledgeable. He was an eccentric character. And he convinced me completely. He was the greatest storyteller I've met. And he brought the jungle alive just by his description. And I was completely swept and taken by it. And I said, please, that's my dream. I'd like to join you. And he said, sure thing. And he invited me to join him on this adventure. 2 other friends that happened to be in La Paz, and I met them on the road. They decided to join, each for their own reason, and we became a foursome. So there's an American photographer, tough guy named Kevin. There was a Swiss school teacher on a sabbatical, a very gentle, beautiful soul named Marcus. There was Karl Ruprechter, the tough guide that was a local there, and me, that in a way I was the youngest, 22 years old, bright-eyed, and I was the engine. My dream was the engine for this entire adventure. And we left La Paz and we flew as far as we can fly. And then we walked for 4 days until we reached that place that's called the Uncharted. Because that place is when the trail ends. That's where the Uncharted begins. We got there. And then we had to cut our way.
So everything was perfect in that moment. You're thinking to yourself, right, I've got exactly what I've wanted. The stars have aligned. The universe has sort of treated me or rewarded me for all my hard work. And then you set off as a foursome with your friends on this magnificent adventure. Tell me about the moment that everything was going well, you were really enjoying the trek and the journey, to all of a sudden you realizing that something has gone seriously wrong.
Well, it took a few weeks. As you say, the first few days, we were in awe of the environment. It's a mighty, mighty rainforest. The Madidi is the densest place on the planet. There's no jungle or any other place on the planet with heavier biological footprint. And it was awesome. It was scary as well, and also it stripped us from our cultures. The identity has changed because now, the rules are different. You have to kill if you want to eat. And we had to kill all sorts of animals because it wasn't easy to hunt. So we ate mainly monkeys, we killed the sloths and all kinds of weird things, but it was survival. And then the tension of the rainforest and all the elements and the jaguars crawling around and it was awesome, but was also scary. And there was a lot of pressure on us because also 4 men and in such a pressure cook, with all that tension, the group didn't hold. There underneath the surface fight for leadership between Kevin and Carl. And there was a fight for friendship between Marcus, Kevin, and me, the 3 friends. And this was shifting. So there's a lot of tension. It wasn't just, wow, it's so beautiful. There was fear, and there were jealousy, and there were raw emotion rising. For example, the kill, suddenly you feel your blood bubbles with excitement when you see a dead animal, and because you're hungry and something primal is awaking in you. It was all very deep and
that bloodlust. Yeah.
Yes. But Marcus was different. Marcus would run to the bleeding animal thinking he will still be able to save it. You see, so we were different in the way we handled the situation. And in fact, Marcus was the weakest link. And after a few weeks, he couldn't walk anymore. We also discovered that Carl is a pathological liar. He kept changing the stories all the time without controlling it. So we understood now that, he was a great guy. He loved the jungle and he knew the jungle very well. But we didn't know if we can trust him because his stories kept on changing. And now we didn't know if there is tribe or he just made it up and all these stories. So this what happened. And we decided, mainly because of Marcus, to stop the adventure, give up our dreams. We were heartbroken, but we felt it's the right thing to do because we had no food no more. Marcus couldn't eat the animal we hunted. He was weak. He was injured. We decided to walk back. But as we walked back, we came across a big river. And then we had the idea, why walk back for 3 weeks? Let's build a raft and try and evacuate by rafting down river to civilization. Then we cut balsa trees and we built a raft. And when we built the raft, the trouble began. Because while we were in the jungle, we had an amazing guide. Crazy, eccentric, but he knew the jungle. He was a great hunter. He knew how to start a fire and build a lean-to in any conditions. And we felt secure because he was at home. But once we were on the river, he was the only one that couldn't swim. And he was so scared of the water that Kevin had this opportunity to take over the leadership. Because Kevin came from Oregon, he was a professional whitewater rafter. And then the clash was outside. It wasn't underneath the surface, it came outside. They were at each other's throat. We had to take sides. I sided with Kevin, Marcus sided with Carl, and it brought a tragedy. After 4 days, Carl left and took Marcus with him. And they went back into the jungle trying to cut their way through. And Kevin and I remained alone on the raft. 3 hours alone on the raft, we hit a huge rock. And the raft explodes on the rock and we lose each other in the river. And after half an hour of incredible, just a miracle saved me from the waterfall and the rapids and the huge rocks and all the dangers in this untamed river. And I found myself on the bank alone and bare to the bone and nothing. No knife, no fire, and no gun, and no friends. I was alone.
Did you panic at this point? What was going through your mind?
Initially, I was actually elated because the river, until today, I know that, that's when I know there is providence. So the first moment I was elated just to be alive, but then it dawned on me what kind of tragedy. But at that very moment, I still had hope because I saw Kevin when we crashed. I saw that Kevin made it to the bank. So I knew that Kevin is on the bank. And I made it to the bank maybe 20 minutes later, but I was on the same bank. So I thought to myself, okay, it will be fine because tomorrow Kevin and I will reunite and we'll deal with it together. But Kevin didn't show up. And I was there for 4 days on the cliff searching for him, and Kevin didn't show up. So actually, the panic and the horror started on the fourth night when I realized I am alone. And at that moment, I was sure
You're by yourself.
by myself. And it was the rainy season began, and I was lying there crying, feeling that on the entire planet, nobody is more miserable than me. There's no greater victims than me. These are the worst possible circumstances, alone in an uncharted rainforest with no equipment and no fire, nothing to protect myself from the elements, from the wildlife. And I was sure I'm going to die miserable, alone, injured. I was in very bad shape. And this was the dark night of the soul also for me, because I was vain. I'm going to be the conqueror of the jungles. I'm going to find this tribe and I'm going to marry the daughter of the chief and I'm going to find gold and all these dreams. Suddenly I look at my vanity. I'm nothing. I'm helpless. There's nothing that I can do to help myself. And I'm probably going to die miserably. So my lifelong dream became the worst nightmare. This was like a real dark night of the soul.
And did you do that, Yossi? Did you accept your fate? Did you think to yourself, I'm alone, I'm in the jungle, and I'm basically going to be out here and die?
That's how I felt. Because you see, hope is a very dangerous thing. For the first 4 days, I was sure I'm going to find Kevin. But after 4 days of waiting, I realized Kevin will not show up. He probably drowned in the river. He probably jumped after me and drowned. So when you don't have that light at the end of the tunnel, there is no light. What do you do then? Hope is a very dangerous thing because it can be taken from you. And then when you're hopeless, then, as I say, it was the dark night of the soul. But after that dark night of the soul, the morning came. And in the morning, I realized I'm not going to lie here on the cliff and cry. I can't. I have to get up. So I got up and I started walking because I had only one choice. Even it wasn't a reasonable choice because it was hundreds of kilometers away. But I knew civilization is downriver. So I'm going to walk downriver. That's the only thing that I can do. And I started walking downriver. And then the first incident that happened on that day, it changed completely my attitude and saved my life. Not only then, but still today. And what happened was that I on the cliffs, there was nothing to eat. I ate nothing, a couple of snails. I dug a tree with my fingernails and broke it, a palm tree, and managed to eat some crumbs of the heart of the palm, but it was nothing. So on the fifth day, I see a fruit on the ground, and I see that it's ripe, and I eat it, and it's sweet. And then I see the tree. So I said I'm going to get more fruit. So somehow it's not simple to climb on a tree. They're very tall, but this tree, I managed to jump on it and climb. And as I reached the first branch laden with that yellow fruit, when I reached my hand to pick up a fruit, a snake that was coiled on the branch just contracts and snaps at me. Okay? So this is like a millisecond where you cannot actually make decisions of how to deal with the situation. So what kicks in? And that's what changed my life forever. Something kicks in. The real you, not the one you think is you.
Wow. Yeah, do or die.
Exactly. And then the organism, not my character, the organism knew what to do. And in a miraculous way, I just let go of the tree and fell down. But when I fell down, I was under that influence, my own influence, intoxicated by survival, which is an intoxication because you get an overload of all kind of hormones that makes you the best version you could ever be. It makes you a superhero. It gives you so much power. In real moment of life and death, you get so many tremendous powers mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. You are awakened.
Yeah, all your senses are attuned. Everything's working in harmony with itself. Yeah, I understand that feeling.
So I jumped back on the tree, a branch in my a stick in my hand, and I chased the snake, and I managed to hit the snake. And then I jumped after the snake, and I killed the snake with a rock, and I peeled it, and I cleaned its gut, and I stuck my teeth. So now, gradually, I start relaxing. And even that is a sensation that I'll never forget. I was throbbing with power. My entire body was throbbing with tremendous power.
You eat this snake, you're now in complete survival mode. And I've read that you were attacked by termites. The weather was against you. You came across jaguars. You had to fight them off. Were you still in this primal state? Did that excite you when that happened, or did it start to really, really grind you down and get to you?
No, something happened to me completely. I was awakened, and that state, apart from one crucial moment, I was actually in that elated state, but also I was in real survival all the time. As you say, jaguars were crawling around all the time. I had no fire. I had no gun. So at night, the only thing I could do is cover myself with palm fronds. That's the only thing I could do, and believe that I'm not seen, because that's the only thing. And the fear was so big that I couldn't sleep. I didn't sleep for 3 weeks. I was there for 20 nights alone. And I didn't sleep any night, but I was dreaming, daydreaming or night dreaming. I was casting myself out of the circumstances with my imagination. And that actually allowed me to rest. Outside was like the jungle was all alive. And there was many hardships. It's like even the movie, they couldn't do actually justice to the story, because in a movie you have 2 hours, and how much you can cram into 2 hours. Like my experience was so eventful. There were termites, there were soldier ants, there were swamps and torrential rains and floods. And I was cut by just walking without a machete. My clothes were cut. My body was all open, wounds and cuts. Nothing healed because I was wet. My feet were rotting. I had no feet. I had 2 chunks of raw flesh, blood and pus, and I was walking on raw flesh, injured. My insects were laying larvae under my skin. I was etching worms all over my body. I hardly ate anything. I ate a couple of raw eggs that I, like scavenged on the forest floor. I became like a skeleton. I was just bones and skin. There was no tissue left. It was just, I lost everything. But my spirit was incredible. I didn't feel miserable. I didn't feel self-pity. I wasn't a victim, and I even enjoyed. And I tell you, this is part of survival, because survival means all your faculties are elevated. So you're spiritual, like I was full of faith and trust. And physically, I could endure all this pain without feeling miserable, because my head was quiet. When you have pain, but you have a voice that tells you, oh, poor me. that voice is called suffering, because the pain is a sensation of the body, but the misery is coming from the mind. My mind was quiet, which is completely unbelievable. So I could endure the pain because there was nobody crying inside my head. It's not fair. It's part of survival. I wasn't worried, because worries wear you down. I was optimized to survive. So it was amazing. Despite all the adversities that I met, I was strong in my spirit. I didn't feel bad for myself. I even enjoyed myself. I enjoyed this awesomeness of the forest. I enjoyed that feelings that there's no other eyes that are watching that raw nature, this waterfall coming. I'm the only one. And I was even intoxicated by this self-discovery. I didn't see myself as such a hero. And in a way, finally, I did get what I want. I wanted a great adventure. I realized this, I got it. This is my adventure. This is my rite of passage. It was very deep experience in real time.
And were there any moments that you thought rescue would come? Were there any times that you bumped into someone? Was there any times that maybe you saw something go down the river or an aeroplane overhead? Or was there any moments of, I know you don't say like the word hope, was there any moments of hope that you were going to be rescued?
As I say, the worst thing was that hope. Because on the 17th day, after a flood, the flood pushed me away from the river. So I was actually in the middle of the jungle, quite lost because of the flood. I suddenly hear a noise and I realize an airplane is coming. 17 days alone in the jungle, an airplane is coming. I know the airplane is coming for me. So hope surges through me. And the airplane is coming and it's fast. The noise is getting closer and closer, and there's nothing I can do. I cannot start a fire, so smoke can signal for me. And there's no opening. The canopy covers everything. I'm away from the riverbank. There's nothing I can do, and the airplane is coming very fast. When the airplane is above my head, I see that there's no chance, because the gaps between the trees, I see the airplane for a second. It's deep, deep in the clouds, moving fast. And I realize there's no way this airplane can see me.
Yeah, you're swallowed up in that jungle as well.
And at that moment, this was the worst moment. This is where I broke down. This is where I gave up. I was so devastated by that surge of hope that I fell and I cried. And from this deep cry, a prayer rose in me. And the prayer was, please, please, please let me die. I don't want to live. I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to die. And I was begging and crying and praying to die.
So Yossi, you went from embracing the jungle and completely accepting the connection to breaking down and not wanting to be there anymore, to be put out your misery. What did you do to turn that headspace around? What did you do to get back into the game and realize, it's not over until it's over. I need to keep moving. I need to get out of here.
I didn't. That's the amazing thing, Ant. I wanted to die. I just wanted to die. I didn't want anything. But something external happened. And that's like the most amazing part of my story. I suddenly heard somebody else next to me. And I was shocked because I was alone for 17 days. And suddenly I hear a noise and I listen, and somebody is weeping, like a soft cry, like a girl. And I was shocked, and it made me stop crying and get up and look. And I found that indigenous, young, like 17 years old, and she's there in the bush and she's crying. And she's scared when she sees me. But at the moment that I see her, I suddenly have a realization. So what are we doing? That airplane, it can turn and come back. So we have to get to the river very quickly. So I start screaming at her. There's no time to cry. We have to make it to the river. And what I did, I started taking care of her. And I was speaking to her non-stop. Just hold on, and I will help you. And once we get to the river, I'll build you a lean-to. And I look for fruit, and I look for eggs, and I'll take care of you. And I was encouraging her all day, talking to her and pushing her and begging her.
So this young girl was lost also.
Well, at night, when I made her a place to sleep next to me, and it wasn't in my head, I had to break more palm fronds to cover two people. And finally, when I tell her, get closer so we can withdraw warmth from each other, I actually noticed that I'm hugging nobody. There was nobody there. But this wasn't like a daydream. This wasn't like an hallucination of mine. I actually believed she was there. I actually talked to her, and I actually made her a place to sleep next to me. It wasn't in my head. So at that moment, I thought I lost my mind. I thought I lost it. I'm crazy. I believed that there was a girl, but there was no girl. But in retrospective, I think that it was a miracle. And the miracle for me wasn't that actually she was an angel coming and showing up. I think she didn't exist. I think she was just imagination. However, I didn't imagine her. As in, I didn't say, okay, let's pretend there's somebody here and play this game. I didn't do it. I believed it was real. So if it was imagination, whose imagination was it? I didn't make it up, but she was made up. Until today, I don't know who made her up. To say that it's my subconscious, I don't know what it means.
And was there a moment of realization when you realized that no one was there? Was there a moment where you thought, wow, my mind is playing tricks on me because she's not actually here?
I was at that in real time. I was devastated. I was scared. I exactly as you describe it. I thought I lost it. I'm a madman. There's nobody here. But in fact, she saved my life. That day, I gave up on life, and when she showed up, I found the power. So at that, I didn't realize it then, but in retrospective, she saved my life. She saved my life. And what's amazing about it, that I wanted to die. But the moment there was somebody else, I found a reason to live. She was more important than me, to me. And that's the amazing thing about human nature, you know? We will do more for somebody else. So that was on the 17th day, and then 3 more days followed. And those were very dramatic days, drowning in swamps and not being able to stand on my feet, crawling, having no food because the flood washed the jungle floor and there was nothing to scavenge anymore.
How did you make it out alive?
Well, 20 days and have passed, and then it's the 20th night, and I'm there on the riverbank. And I got to this place, and I decided not to move because I knew that if an airplane will come, they'll be able to spot me. It was an opening there on the river. So I decided to stay there. But it was the second day where I stayed in that spot on the riverbank, and the night came. It was dawn. It was dusk, and I heard this noise, and I was sure it's a bee or a wasp because it was like a little buzz. But then it grew stronger and stronger, and I thought there's like a wasp above my head. So I opened my eyes, and I'm trying to get rid of the wasp, and there's no wasp. So I raised my head, and I saw this dugout canoe with a motor reaching that shore, and there were people there. I didn't notice. I was about 100 yards away from the river because I was afraid of a flood. That's why I didn't stay on the river. So I saw the boat, the canoe landing, and I tried to get up. I was very weak and injured. And before I managed to get up, I hear some screams and people jumping out of the canoe, turning it very quickly around and pushing it back into the river. And then the people jump back on the canoe, and then the canoe started going away downriver. So I managed to bring myself to my feet, and I'm looking at this canoe going downriver, and I'm trying to scream, and I cannot scream. No voice is coming, and I'm just seeing this canoe, and in another second it will veer around the curve and disappear. When suddenly somebody turns their head back, and then I hear a scream, "Yossi, don't move!" And the canoe turns back and lands again on the riverbank, and Kevin is running towards me. Kevin is running towards me, and he grabs me, and I fall into his arms, and we cry on each other shoulders. And then the people from the boat coming and say, "Quick, quick, quick! Cannot stay here. It's not safe." So apparently, Kevin hired this man that owned the canoe, the only man that had a motorized dugout canoe, the only engine in the region. And the indigenous people, the Chupiamona, that found Kevin after 6 days of his journey alone, he was found by this tribe, the Chupiamona. They took him out to civilization. He was the one that announced the event. The airplane came to search for me because of him, but the airplane didn't search for me. It just did its duty to say a search was done, to pacify the consulate, Israeli, the American consulate. But there was no search because nobody believed there's any chance that I'll be alive. Nobody believed it. Only Kevin did.
So you're now reunited with Kevin. Where's are you in sight of Marcus and Carl? Does Kevin know where they are?
No, he's telling me, look, he said it's strange. I've been to La Paz, and I went to the Rosario Hotel, and Marcus wasn't there. Strange, because Kevin said, I thought they would have been back to La Paz before us. As it is, actually, they never came back. They were never, ever seen since that morning when we split.
So Marcus and Carl never came back, never seen again?
They were never seen again.
Wow. And at this stage, so you meet Kevin, you make it back to civilization. The recovery for that, how did you recover, and how did it affect you psychologically? How did it affect your mindset moving forward from that experience of pure survival?
It changed my life forever, want it or not. Like this event shifted my life. At that moment, I didn't have the perspective, but looking back, I know that I lived a different life because of that. First, I was elated. I had no trauma. And because I had no trauma, I had no post-trauma. I never had a nightmare ever, not even once. And I actually felt blessed, enriched. The only pain was losing Marcus and Carl. But other than that, I saw all this as a very positive experience. I didn't see it as a tragedy. It wasn't a tragedy in real time. And later, it didn't become tragedy. It was a beautiful, awesome experience. My love for adventure and nature only intensified. I kept traveling all over the world and kept doing exploration, daring exploration. I went back to the same river, to the Madidi, to the same people that saved Kevin and came with Kevin to look for me. And I did stay with them in the middle of the jungle on the same river for 3 years. I did become one of them. I became a hunter. I became one of the tribe. I learned the language and the custom, and I lived in the Amazon in the same place where I almost lost my life. I made it my home. And so the story affected me in a beautiful way. I don't know what would have happened otherwise, because we never know. We just know the life we have. We never know the life we could have had. I haven't done anything, as I said. I haven't done anything. But nature kicked in because my situation was real. Real means there was a real danger to my life every single day of this adventure. I was in a very hostile environment in the worst time to be there, which is the midst of a rainy season, which was one of the worst in the decade. But I wasn't in any trauma. I dealt with it. When you deal with what happens, this is not a trauma. There was acceptance, but beyond me creating, like my mental resilience. The mental resilience kicked in. It wasn't me. It wasn't my character. I was just a kid. I was a regular guy. I wasn't.
You had no choice.
I had no choice. And I didn't do it. It was a deeper layer in me that did it. And because of that, because I was fully in action and in acceptance, and I didn't succumb to the misery or to the victimhood, I was in pain, but I wasn't in misery. I was in great trouble, but I wasn't a victim. And because of that, when I came out, there was no trauma because I wasn't in any trauma. And that's a great lesson for life as well, that we cannot control adversity.
And Yossi, the story has been turned into a movie called Jungle, starring Daniel Radcliffe. What was it like seeing such a formative experience and such a powerful and life-changing experience turned into a movie? Was that a humbling time? And how did you sort of embed yourself within the movie?
Yeah, I really felt privileged. It was another dream. I arrived in Hollywood 9 years after it happened. I was 30. I came with the book wasn't yet even translated to English. And it took 26 years before the movie was released. So if again, people think, nothing, there's always a story behind everything, because Hollywood they loved the story, but they wanted to change it. Said, no, 4 boys, we must have a girl. And 2 characters disappear in the middle of the story. No, from a screenplay point of view, it wouldn't hold. The audience would not accept it. And 1 guy alone for half of the movie, no. So they wanted to make changes and I refused. So I left Hollywood. And it wasn't before actually an Australian great director and a great friend of mine today, Greg McLean from the Wolf Creek Legacy. He picked up the script. And he decided to do this story. And Daniel Radcliffe was recruited and he loved it. And then the movie happened.
Yossi, this has been magnificent with you.
Thank you.
And your story is inspirational. You've taught me a lot. Thank you ever so much for joining me. And yes, the movie Jungle, definitely go out there and watch it because you will gain lots of inspiration from it. Your story is amazing, Yossi. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining me on Head Game.
And thank you.
Thanks so much for joining me on Head Game. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our incredible stories, and leave me a review wherever you're listening. I'm Ant Middleton. Catch you again next time.